The Arizona Diamondbacks are losing their fourth coach this offseason. We have more on the impact of Tony Perezchica leaving for the Houston Astros in 30 seconds. Don't go anywhere. To you all, and welcome into another edition of the PHNX D-Backs podcast right here on PHNX. My name is Derek Montilla, occasionally known as your mayor of PHNX. This man, occasionally known as your Thunderstick. He is the one and only Jesse Friedman. And of course, we thank you for being here today. This show is brought to you by our friends at Bet365. Go download the Bet365 app now and use that code of PHNX365 when you sign up. Choose your offer and find out why it is never ordinary at Bet365. And it is never ordinary for the Arizona Diamondbacks, especially this offseason, because they are in the process, according to reports, of losing their fourth coach this offseason. We do know the Diamondbacks have parted ways with their pitching coaching staff, essentially, of Brent Strom, Mike Hazen, Dan Carlson. Now reports are stating that Tony Perezchica, third base coach for the D-backs, will be leaving the organization to become the new third base coach for the Houston Astros. And Jesse, I hate it. I hate it so much. I can't stand it.
For however much you hate that, Derek, I think people in the chat hate what you're wearing.
Yeah, I get
a little bit more than that.
I get it.
For those of you joining us on the audio side, would you like to explain what you're wearing?
I'm wearing
to the show
a hoodie
today?
from our trip to Chicago. Jesse,
Yeah,
I'm wearing a hoodie.
Just any old
I'm wearing
hoodie from Chicago.
A hoodie from Chicago that I purchased in the city of Chicago as a souvenir from Chicago. Yes.
I just want to say, I want to chime in here. Derek likes to complain a lot about fans in the chat that think he's not truly aligned with the D-backs nation.
Correct.
And then he does this.
Right.
Or he has me
if you're gonna come
or he has me make Yamamoto King Snake.
Make you. I told you there are checks and balances, and you failed, Kevin. You failed your first test as producer of the show. Damon would have never permitted that to go on, and you know it. But yeah, no, this is if it helps anybody, I bought this in lids across from Wrigley Field for $25 on clearance, and then they had another special 50% off. I don't know if that makes it any better. I just love deals, and I love telling people about the deals I got. Jesse can attest to that. Rarely does a day pass that I don't tell him about some smoking deal I got. But the Houston Astros here, they might have gotten a smoking deal on a third base coach, Jesse, because Tony Perezchica, one of the best. We will miss him on this team very much so. I mean, he's been a part of the organization since 2003. I don't know a time of watching this team. Like, as long as I've known of the Diamondbacks, Tony Perezchica, I feel like, has been a part of it, at least, dating back almost as far as I can remember.
2003, that's a long time. And I had not even realized how long Tony Perezchica had been with the Diamondbacks organization until the news came out today. The Houston Astros have hired away Tony Perezchica. This is not the same situation as Brent Strom and Dan Carlson and Mike Fetters. Those guys, the Diamondbacks decided to part ways with them. This is a different situation where Perezchica was offered a job in Houston that is similar, but comes with some more responsibilities. It sounds like he's also going to be involved with some of their minor leaguers as well as an infield instructor, which is something that he also did with the Diamondbacks at various points. The Diamondbacks have had one of the best defenses in baseball really ever since Tony Perezchica became their third base coach and took on the job of being their primary infield coach. Torey Lovullo hired Perezchica for that role when he joined the organization heading into the 2017 season. And you look at the numbers since then, the Diamondbacks are second in outs above average. They are fifth in defensive runs saved in that span. And that's not all Tony Perezchica. there's some Dave McKay working with the outfilders
For sure.
in there as well. There's also just the talent level of some of these guys. Like Nick Ahmed was the team shortstop for a portion of that time, and obviously was super talented in that regard. But Tony Perezchica was also, I think, really good at what he did, and he's getting a cool opportunity now with the Astros.
Well, and I mean, there is something to be said about the fact that both Tony and Dave McKay have just been instrumental in coaching the guys up and getting this team to play that level of defense that we know as Diamondbacks baseball, right? As Torey describes it, right? But I'm curious in regards to what the future holds right now for Torey and the coaching staff. I mean, Perezchica, obviously, we know about how good he was as, a teacher and a mentor to young players. However, we've just like with Brent Strom, there's some questions there. There's some times where we've joked about Perezchica sending guys or not sending guys, or being gun shy based on something that happened a few days before or whatever. So, but I mean, essentially he has been Torey's third base coach the entire time Torey has been a manager.
Yeah, he has.
Torey has also had arguably one of the best coaching staffs around him up to this point. I mean, that again, arguably based on experience, based on how good these guys are, based on how well respected.
Yeah,
guys
very
like
well
Brent
respected
Strom,
across the board.
Jeff Bannister. Sure. We don't know what the future holds now for this team. There's a good chance that Jeff Bannister might be departing, and there's no information floating out there about that. We don't know if Bannister's been, applying for positions or if there's interest there. It just feels like, based on what Torey said in his postseason press conference about Bannister, and that any team would be lucky to have him as a manager. It almost sounded like Torey was foreshadowing that is something that could be happening down the road. We could see Torey coaching for the first time in a long time with a completely new staff. I mean, Joe Mather's still there, but outside of that, like, it feels like there is going to be change everywhere. And honestly, with the way the offense performed last year, I don't see there's no reason to make any changes with the hitting coach there. But I mean, who knows at this point? It's interesting. I wonder how exposed Torey Lovullo will be without some of these great minds around him helping him manage this team.
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I think you're totally right that these guys are all well respected. I mean, obviously the D-backs decided to make some changes on the pitching side of things this offseason. But yeah, I think this has been a pretty solid group throughout Torey's tenure, and Tony Perezchica was certainly a part of that. We got nothing but good reports along the way from guys trying to hone their craft defensively. Christian Walker obviously is maybe the biggest success story for the Diamondbacks defensively in this span, blossoming as the best first baseman in all of baseball. And I remember Josh Rojas talking about working with TP and speaking very highly of him there as well. So this is a promotion. I mean, this is the Houston Astros saying, hey, we want that guy. And I imagine the Diamondbacks had to grant some sort of permission in order for this to happen. But yeah, good for Tony Perezchica. I mean, he has given a lot to this organization. You do not see guys stay within the same organization for 22 years very long. The Diamondbacks have not been around for much longer than that, right? I guess he joined 5 years into the Diamondbacks even existing in the first place. So yeah, this is a big loss. And Brent Strom, even though the Diamondbacks voluntarily decided to move on from him, that's also a big loss. That's a guy who is very well respected around the game, even if it didn't work here. And this team not only has some big decisions to make on the field, but they have some big decisions to make as far as their coaching staff as well going into next season.
I think, Groundhog Mama says Dave McKay is a silver fox. Let's address that real fast. Tony Perezchica is a gorgeous man as well. All right, for an older gentleman, he is a very, very good looking man, and the Diamondbacks are definitely less good looking without Tony Perezchica. But I will say that I know we've seen Dave McKay quite a bit out there. I can't recall seeing another coach out there helping guys individually with their fielding as often as I saw Perezchica, and that's part of his responsibility, with this team. And I'm sure it'll be part of the responsibilities for the new third base coach, whoever that should be. But it's just, a lot of these guys they've come up within the organization in the last few years. This staff is all they know. So it's going to be interesting to see how having new mentors come in here can impact them. I mean, maybe in some cases you might not have gotten along with one of these coaches. Maybe in some cases you maybe didn't see eye to eye with them in regards to their teaching philosophies or their methods of coaching you. So there is that maybe a new pitching coach, maybe a new third base coach could improve this team, because we really don't know. I mean, we just don't know how a different, voice could have an impact on this team. But, again, especially with the coaching staff and some of the things we saw, I don't blame Brent Strom, but I am looking forward to seeing what this team looks like with a different leader in there for the coaching, for the pitching staff.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see how the Diamondbacks fill these spots. And you also mentioned Jeff Bannister earlier and how he totally could be a viable candidate for a team looking for a manager this offseason. Torey spoke very highly in his exit interview about Bannister's him being a good fit for a role like that. Obviously, Bannister's managed in the majors before, has a pretty good amount of experience in that regard. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see. It's always tricky to know, like, what really was Tony Perezchica's impact. Like, without him, are the Diamondbacks a middling defensive team over the last 6-7 years? Like, probably not. I mean, I think the talent is a really, really big factor there. But again, we heard nothing but positive things about TP along the way. And obviously, the Houston Astros saw something positive in him as well in order to want to try to pluck him away from the Diamondbacks as they're doing.
We got Josh's comment there that says, crazy to think Tony P moving laterally to the Astros. Wonder if there's an ascension into management promised soon after. Hopefully we don't suffer too much defensively with his loss. And I think,
he is getting, it is a bigger role. It is not just the third base coach of the Astros. There was some reporting that there was something beyond that in it for him. It sounds like he's going to help with some of their minor leaguers and whatnot. So I think it is technically a promotion in a sense.
I think he's suggesting though that maybe there's also the promise that in the future he could move up. And maybe even get a shot at managing that team one day. And who knows, right? I mean,
I would be pretty surprised. I don't think teams really hire third base coaches with stuff like that built in. But
I'm not suggesting it's built in. What I'm suggesting is that it's possibly part of the discussion, or possibly the opportunities over there might be, might have been explained to him that there might be opportunities in the future, and then it's just a wider open opportunity than maybe here with the Diamondbacks.
Yeah, absolutely. Maybe, we'll I'm sure find out a little bit more about this situation here in the coming days. But he's really good at what he does. And I guess the other part of Perezchica's job that does draw some scrutiny from time to time is the fact that the third base coach is responsible for deciding whether you're stopping at third or whether you're trying to score. And I think any third base coach is going to draw some criticism. Yes. I don't think any third base coach is widely revered in that regard. The Diamondbacks did not have many putouts at home this past season. I think they ranked near the bottom of the league in that regard. So for whatever that's worth. That is another part of this job that people probably notice even more than what goes on behind the scenes with the defensive work and whatnot.
Known baseball GM Elise, if you scroll up there, Kevin had a comment about right there. Doesn't Orlando Hudson help with the infield? Could he take on a bigger role?
Yeah, that's a good question. Orlando Hudson does help with the infield. I think he spends most of his time in the minors as of right now. We tend to see him in spring training, and then he generally is not around during the regular season. Although I do think he popped into Chase Field at some point. Was maybe doing some work with
when he's there. When O-Dog's there.
You definitely know when O-Dog is around. That's a good point. That's a good point for sure. Maybe the Diamondbacks would look to hire from within as opposed to going outside the organization.
Yeah, that definitely could be the case, and we will obviously keep you posted on what happens here in regards to the coaching staff. But like I said earlier, this might not be the only role that they have to fill here within the coaching staff before all is said and done this offseason. So we'll see how things shake up for Torey Lovullo's staff and for some of the remaining members. Of course, I think it was it Ryan that transitioned into out of my hoodie discount into an ALLCITY. I mean, he might be doing this better than I am. I'm not sure, but of course, I was talking about getting my hoodie at a discount, and Ryan was saying that right now, no, I know of a good deal. It's the Die Hard membership right now. Well done, Ryan.
There you go.
$48 for a year. You're not wrong, sir. You're not wrong. For those of you that might not know, ALLCITY is creating an introductory Die Hard offer for just $48 for the first year, or just $4 a month billed annually. And of course, what you got to do, got to go out and check out all the stuff we have to offer. It's not just you know, the shirt you get. It's not just the items you receive. You get access to all of the written content on our website. You get access to the special Die Hard only content that we have coming, including another edition of Squeeze Play, which is our game show featuring you diehards. We will also have Ask Archie as a brand new segment that's just for diehards only. Only diehards get to ask the questions, and only diehards get to see the answers for Ask Archie. And most importantly, D-Backs After Dark, where me and Damon are just going to curse so much that I think we're going to put a little curse counter in the bottom corner and just rack up the curse words as much as possible. So do not miss out on all of this wonderful content, especially for this wonderful introductory offer of just $48 for the first year. And do not miss the Discord Lounge, by the way. There is no better community in sports here in Arizona other than the Discord Lounge. It's the best place to be an Arizona sports fan.
Yeah, I'll also say on the writing side, you know, not to toot my own horn, but I will speak.
I'll toot it for him.
I will speak to some of my colleagues. Craig Morgan is one of the best beat writers, period, in Arizona, and probably the best beat writer in my granted somewhat biased opinion. And he covers the Cardinals for us. So if you want access to his Cardinals coverage, which I think is second to none, become a diehard. Same story with Gerald covering the Suns. Obviously, the Suns are about to start up their season tomorrow, I think. Suns Clippers tomorrow night, if I'm not mistaken.
Wednesday
season
night,
opener.
correct.
So yeah, Gerald does outstanding work. Gerald just put together 17 straight days of season previews.
He's a sicko. He's a sicko who makes content for sickos.
He absolutely is, and it really is worth. You know, we understand that in this day and age, like paying for written content, like there's a certain standard that you have to reach for it to be worth that.
For sure.
And we spend a lot of time thinking about like, how can we really make this unique and different from anything else out there? And we really try to execute that across the board. And I won't speak for myself, but my colleagues do an outstanding job of that.
Let's get it over here, Kev. I'm going to speak for him. Let's talk about Jesse Friedman's writing.
Oh dear,
because it's incredible, and of course nobody does it better. Like he said, he works very hard, tremendously hard, to bring stories, to bring information about the Diamondbacks from a unique perspective that you won't find anywhere else. So make sure not to miss out on the wonderful writing he has. He has an article I know he's been writing and working very hard on in regards to Gino Groover. That's just a little sample of what you'll get, not to mention the fact that he relentlessly covers this team through the regular season, postseason, offseason, preseason. It doesn't matter. Jesse is there covering them. So don't miss out on all of this wonderful content we have. Not to mention the fact that we will offer, you know, again, the ability to hear Archie curse a lot more, as well as me. And like Groundhog Mama said, D-Backs Discord is the best. It is the best place for you to be a sports fan. And again, it's a community year-round, not just during the regular season. We're here all the time. So, of course, we'd love it if you would join us. We have some wonderful things to offer, and I have a feeling once you become part of the family, you won't want to leave. So we thank you again so much for those of you that already are diehards. And, of course, if you are not a diehard, we implore you to check it out for sure. On the other side of this break, we are going to give our first grade of the offseason to Zac Gallen's 2024 year. So, of course, don't go anywhere. We will have more on that here shortly. But of course, we're very proud to sponsor or to partner together with Sanderson Ford as our official vehicle partner. Sanderson Ford is the proud partner of your Arizona Diamondbacks, as well as, of this little show right here. Their 65-acre facility makes them the largest Ford dealership in the nation, and they will get you what you're looking for with a no hassle, no pressure, no nonsense sales approach. They are a family-owned and operated car dealership through 3 generations, and they are also America's most awarded Ford dealership for customer satisfaction. Right now, they're giving you big payoffs like 0% financing on a new 2024 F-150, Escape, Edge, Explorer, and Expedition. Great deals right now also on the 2024 Ford Bronco Sport for 5.9% APR for 66 months, plus $2,000 cash back. Must be financed through Ford Motor Credit OAC. Also, come on down. Help Sanderson Ford celebrate Hispanic Heritage Month with a Dia de los Muertos inspired trunk or treat at Sanderson Ford. See dealership for details. And of course, if you are not already on the Bet365 app, don't know what you're waiting for. Bet365 makes watching sports even more fun, especially with their live in-game betting. They offer the widest range of games and markets available for live in-game betting across 78 sports. Right now, when you sign up using our code of PHNX365, deposit $10 and you can choose either between a bet and get offer where you place a $5 bet or more and receive $150 in bonus bets, or a first bet safety net offer where you can place up to a $1,000 bet, and if your qualifying bet loses, you receive a matched refund in bonus bets. Don't miss out on the early payout offer across all sports right now, where you're a winner if your team goes up early despite the outcome of the game. Parlay and same game parlay selections will be marked as winners as well. Download the Bet365 app and use that code of PHNX365 when you sign up. Choose your offer and find out why it is never ordinary at Bet365. Must be 21 or over and physically located in Arizona. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call 1-800-NEXT-STEP, text NEXT STEP to 53342, or visit problemgambling.az.gov. All right. Well, the Arizona Diamondbacks, of course, had a rough season when it came to pitching. We know that injuries hampered it a lot, obviously. Disappointing seasons from the new acquisitions, especially in Erod's case. It was a combination of both, a little bit of disappointment with some of his performances, a little bit of disappointment with the injuries that he suffered. But Zac Gallen, of course, is the ace of this staff still. And he remained that this year. I mean, I think last year there was a little bit of a question between him and Merrill Kelly at times. I think Merrill Kelly had an excellent season in 2023, and obviously there were times where you could make a case that Merrill was the ace of the staff. But Zac, kind of bounced back this year. He struggled with injuries himself. He struggled with missing time. But there were times where he was still that guy, the guy that we know him to be, the guy that is the ace of the D-backs pitching staff. So let's take a look here first at his numbers from the 2024 season. Zac ended the year with a 3.65 ERA and a 1.26 WHIP. He had 148 innings pitched. He had a strikeout percentage of 25.1%, or strike percentage, walk percentage of 8.7%, and a FWAR of 2.8. Now, obviously, these numbers in comparison to the rest of his career are by far not the best numbers that he's put up. And so you could easily say that this was a down season overall for Zac Gallen. His strikeout rate was the lowest of his career, and he really struggled with some of his pitches, including like his four-seam fastball really being effective with it.
Yeah, I mean, the first thing I'll say is a 3.65 ERA. Is that great? And it's not great, not at this stage, not given what the run environment across the league was like in 2024. But for a guy having what is widely viewed as a down season, it's still pretty good. Like if 3.65 is if that's the worst you're gonna do, you can live with that. And it really wasn't all that different from last season either, right? He had a 3.47 ERA a year ago. Granted, he did sort of falter toward the end of the season, had a chance to finish with an ERA lower than that. I think the biggest thing that stands out for me this year with Gallen is just how he really struggled to get deep into games.
Yeah.
This was really a trend, especially toward the end of the season when you felt like the bullpen was really running on fumes and you were hoping to get as much length as you possibly could, especially given all the instability throughout the rotation for pretty much the entire season. Those extra innings were really important. And Gallen just really struggled to deliver that. You mentioned he finished with 148 innings. If you average that out over his 28 starts, he only averaged 5.3 innings per start. So basically 5 1/3. And granted, Part of that is skewed by the couple of games that he exited early with injury. So maybe it's more like 5.5 innings per start. That might be a little more fair, but it still pales in comparison to last season when Gallen was well over 200 innings and made every start during the season. So I think that there were some injuries at play in that, but there was also just Gallen being a little bit less efficient and less effective in 2024.
And I think it's not a startling trend, but when you look at his numbers from 2022, 2023, 2024, he's not trending in a great direction, right? It's not trending in a way where he's getting better. It's not trending in a way where he's been extremely consistent over those 3 years. I mean, the numbers have kind of gotten worse as that time has gone on. So I do think that this is something to consider overall in the Diamondbacks deciding whether or not to give Zac Gallen a long-term deal.
Yeah.
Right. And again, I think that's why this season coming up is so important, so vital to Zac himself. It's vital for the Diamondbacks to make a decision should they want to pursue, I'm sure, the amount of money it's going to cost in order to bring him back after next season. But it does come to a point where, again, the Diamondbacks can't be giving Gallen a contract based on his numbers from 2022 for the rest of his career if the trending, direction of his performances are going in a negative direction. I mean, and like, again, it's not like it's 3.65. Not only is it a wonderful tie into our sponsor, but it's also still a really good ERA, right? Overall for a starting pitcher. You don't want to lose somebody of that caliber. And if that's a bad season for him, if that's considered a down year, then that's somebody that you do want to stick around. But when you look at his opponent batting average since 2022, right? He had an opponent batting average of 165 in 2022, 238, 2023, 280 last season, right?
Yeah, those are on his four-seamer in particular.
Right. Yeah. I'm sorry. Yeah, I should have addressed that. But
even across the board, it's similar. I guess last year and this year were pretty similar, but 2022 he had a 186 opponent batting average, which is obviously incredible, and then 238 in 2023, 237 this past season. So you're right. The overall trend here is in the wrong direction. He has he had a 2.54 ERA in 2022, and then a 3.47 last year, and a 3.65 this year. If you look at his WHIP numbers, the differences there are even more significant. He had a 0.91 WHIP in 2022, which is exceptional. It was the best in the entire National League. And then he had a 1.12 WHIP last year, and then this year it was 1.26, which is not terrible, but it's pretty average. It's a pretty average number, a pretty average amount of traffic on the bases. And Gallen was still able to wiggle out of some of those situations and put up, as we've been saying, a pretty decent ERA. But this was not, I wouldn't call his season dominant. I would call it solid. When he was on the mound, you felt pretty good that you'd have a chance to win the game, especially given how good this offense was. But it was not the season that you would hope for your ace starting pitcher to have.
Justin McDermott says struggling after 2 strikes and then walking the guy towards the end.
Yeah.
That really did. I mean, I don't know if that was just specific to Zac Gallen. I think that was something that was problematic with many pitchers on the pitching staff this season, but that specifically seemed to be something that, especially when you watched, those outings where things suddenly did kind of spiral out of control for him, that seemed to be the case. You'd see him getting ahead in counts, and then it's not even about attacking the zone and not being able to put the guy away. You just saw him, I guess, get too cute with it, where he wouldn't. Yeah. He would start throwing a knuckle curve way outside of the strike zone. He'd start throwing the changeup outside of the strike zone. He just wouldn't be aggressive in attacking the zone and get I guess put up those same numbers that he has in the past.
Yeah, and you mentioned it earlier. His four-seam fastball was a big reason why he was not the same caliber of pitcher this year as he's been in the past. You said it earlier, a 280 opponent batting average on his four-seamer. 460 slugging percentage this year compared to 238 and 360 last year, and 165 and 301 in 2022. So no one was doing anything with Zac Gallen's fastball in 2022. It was one of the best four seamers in all of baseball the last couple of years. And then this season, it just wasn't. And we talked about that mid-season. I wrote a deep dive on that at one point about how his fastball was kind of the biggest difference for him this year. Just getting hit around a lot. The swing and miss on it is diminished pretty significantly at a 13.3% whiff rate on his four-seamer this season, which is far and away the lowest it's ever been. It was in the 19-20% range the last couple of years. So, yeah, that was a really big difference. And you look at the characteristics of the pitch. His velo was down early in the season, but then it was actually higher than normal toward the end of the season. We saw some like 97s, 98s. It was weird. It was very bizarre. So it wasn't really a velo thing. The movement on the pitch, the induced vertical break was pretty similar. It's generally trended downward, but not alarmingly so. So the biggest difference, I think, is location. He just was not able to dot up the fastball the way that we're used to seeing Gallen dot up a fastball. One of my favorite metrics for looking at this is location plus, which is kind of a newer thing. Basically, 100 is average, and then anything above that is better than average. Lower than that is below average. And Gallen was a 95 on his four-seam fastball this year. So he had below average command of his four-seam fastball. And that's been like his hallmark throughout his careers. He can throw any pitch in any location, and he just was not able to do that in 2024.
Well, and meanwhile, his curveball was the best that it's ever been, essentially. And I know really he had to rely on that a lot. I think Cam or somebody was talking about chase rate. Tanner said he had to rely on chase. And I mean, the curveball was working well, and it felt like after a while that became a pitch that he started to trust as that out pitch. But if you're not swinging at it,
right,
it's not. He's not placing it in the zone. At least he shouldn't be placing it in the zone. And it made for a lot of success with it, but it also made for, I think, Gallen to have a lot of lengthy outings, or not lengthy outings, a lot of high pitch counts, and which allowed him not to go very long into his outings.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's all connected, right? If you're not able to really spot up your fastball, you're not able to get ahead in counts. His first pitch strike rate was far and away the lowest it's ever been in his career. When you're not able to get ahead of guys in that same way with your fastball, then it puts more pressure on getting guys to chase, those breaking pitches out of the zone. And to be fair, when they did chase Zac Gallen's curveball, or even when they swung at it in the zone, they didn't really do anything with it.
No.
Gallen's curveball is the reason that he is still a very good pitcher, even as he's gone through some of these struggles in other areas. It had a whiff rate just south of 40% in 2024, which is very, very good. Opposing hitters hit 148 against it with a 230 slugging percentage. Those numbers actually significantly better than where they were in 2023. So he has a lot of weapons, right? And even though some of the other weapons have faded a little bit, his command hasn't been as sharp. His curveball is so freaking good that it still allowed Gallen to be a pretty darn good starting pitcher.
His other secondary pitches, his changeup, his slider, those were still good, but just not getting those numbers. And like you said, it all relates back to the fastball.
Yeah.
You're just not getting batters to swing at your changeup or your slider as much if the fastball isn't a threat.
Yeah. I think it really is that simple in a lot of ways. And yeah, the changeup is another pitch kind of like the fastball that we've I think location-wise was actually quite good in 2024. Gallen has always had a pretty good feel for bearing that changeup, down and away to lefties, down in the zone in general to righties. But he's not getting the same level of swing and miss on his changeup as he did at the beginning of his career. He had, I think, a couple of seasons with whiff rates over 40% on his changeup when he first came in the league. That was arguably a better pitch than even his curveball at the time. And we've seen those pitches very much trade places, where Gallen's changeup is a solid pitch. It's totally fine as kind of a third weapon, which is basically what it is. But he doesn't throw it all that much, and it's not a huge swing and miss weapon for him at this point. He had a 26.5% whiff rate on the changeup this year. And opposing hitters were able to do some damage against it. A 270 batting average, a 382 slugging percentage. The expected numbers were actually a little bit worse than that. So yeah, it's a good pitch, but it's not the pitch that it was when he first came into the league.
And it's not a pitch again. It's I think going back to the root problem was, he was able to locate his other stuff. He was able to get those secondary pitches in there, but it just goes to show you without a fastball that you can rely on, it can't really set up this secondary stuff and have it be nearly as effective, right? And again, this is a guy with a 3.65 ERA, so he was still effective. It's just
he was still good,
not as effective without that fastball being, kind of what it was in the past. So
you just know that, like, if you take the best version of Gallen's fastball, like when his command of that pitch is as good as we've seen it at times, plus his curveball as good as it was this year, plus the changeup, what we've seen that pitch be at times, like Gallen could be the best. I mean, he could be close to the best pitcher in the sport if he had all of those things clicking. And so,
but he doesn't, and he never does,
and he never does,
and he will be the first person to tell you that he doesn't. Yeah. Even on a night Gallen goes out there, strikes out double digits, and gives up 1 earned run, he's still probably going to tell you, I didn't have a great feel for all of my pitches or something like that, right? Because he never does, right?
And there's some truth to that. Like I don't think that's all Gallen being a perfectionist. I think it is just like his change. He really hasn't had as good a feel for the change.
He's like, I had to throw the curveball a lot tonight because these other two pitches weren't really working well.
And his curveball worked. His curveball is good enough that he can throw it like half the time some days, and it works. I mean, I think about his last start against the Giants, his last start of the season against the Giants, where he was so good. He just threw a bazillion curveballs out of the zone, and the Giants just like could not help themselves. They just kept swinging and missing over and over again. It's a great pitch, and it tunnels really well with his fastball. The arsenal really works well together. But it's still, Gallen is just, he's one of those guys that you can dream up a scenario where with everything working, he could be just so good. And so to see him, kind of take these gradual steps back the last couple of years, it's almost hard to watch in a way. It's like, you can just envision him being so much better than what he's been, even though what he's been, again, is still a pretty darn good starting pitcher.
Cam says sometimes it feels like Gallen is humble, bragging when he does that. I mean, a little bit, but not really. Like you said,
I don't really read it that way.
We know we've been there present enough that we really just feel like he's being honest. And sometimes when you go back and look at his pitch selection or what he threw, it'll back up exactly what he's saying, because you'll see that he kind of backed off a particular pitch that he said he didn't have a feel for, even if it's that curveball at times. Usually if that was the case, he wasn't having that good of an outing. But I mean, Zach is still Zac Gallen, and I think he's still a very, very valuable piece of this organization. Next year is going to be interesting, man, because there's a lot of guys playing for this team with a lot on the line next year. Yeah. Personally, not for the team, but for themselves, for their careers, for what lies beyond 2025. So I'm interested to see how these guys come out next year and play essentially for the bag. And you got a lot of guys doing that next season. So I don't know. I mean, obviously, like in Christian Walker's case, as much as he wanted to do that, injuries held him back a little bit, and he didn't have the strongest end of the season that he would have wanted to have. I'm sure Gallen would probably say something similar about this year if this was, his final year with the Diamondbacks, but it's not. We get at least one more season with Zac Gallen, and in honor of that, I suppose, he is our very first subject of our offseason grades. So let's take a look at what our report cards have in store for Zac Gallen's 2024 season. Jesse, I'll allow you to go first.
All right, here's what I got. We'll talk about the dog in a moment. Don't you worry.
That's amazing. Is that an English bulldog?
It is okay. I guess we're talking.
No. Go down the order. We'll get there. I'm just excited.
Okay, so yeah, we broke this down into a few different categories. The first one is stuff. I have Gallen as a B+ there. Even though, I think at times the fastball wasn't quite as dominant, even from a stuff standpoint. The changeup we mentioned has regressed a little bit. His curveball is so good that I still can't help but give Gallen a very positive grade in that regard. So I have a B+ for stuff. Command, I have a C+, which again is going back to like that 95 location plus metric that I mentioned on his fastball, that was tied for the worst mark of any Diamondbacks pitcher, minimum 20 innings. So just to give you a sense of the scale, 95 is actually quite bad. It's not just that it was just a little tick up below average. It was like this guy had very, very poor fastball command relative to his teammates. So I have a C+ in that department. His command was really good on the curveball and changeup in general, but the fastball is obviously such a big part of his game. Durability, I'm going with a C on that. He did miss some time. There was the hamstring. There was another start that he left early with cramping. It's similar to what we've seen with Merrill Kelly time and time again. So no alarming concerns or anything there. But I felt C was appropriate. 148 innings is not really what you're looking for from your ace starting pitcher. Obviously had an enormous workload last year, and that kind of plays into things. But yes, now we'll get to the dog. Instead of I guess in the past did we just give them a dog and him grade?
Yeah, we just gave a dog and him grade, but we decided this year that we were just going to name the dog in him, the breed of the dog,
right
in these players.
Every player does have a dog in them.
It's not a matter of not that. There's nobody's at zero.
Right.
There's always some level of dog in you as a person. It's just, what is that dog?
Is it a Chihuahua?
Is it a Great Dane?
A pit bull?
Is it Cosmo the Wonder Dog? Like, what dog is inside of you?
Yeah, exactly.
Right. So Jesse is giving Zac Gallen an English Bulldog. You want to explain your decision behind that?
Yeah, I don't really know much about English Bulldogs, to be totally honest. However, I do know that Zac Gallen has an English Bulldog named Moose. And so that just felt appropriate.
This is placating.
If the player has a known dog, then I feel like we have to match the breed with the player. Like, he gets an English Bulldog. It only felt right.
In Jesse's defense, they do say that the dog takes after the owner, and that they start to behave like each other after a while together. So
that is very true.
There is some smoke to that fire.
Yeah,
Cosmo,
I mean, in
Cosmo
this case,
has also started whizzing on the toilet when he goes.
Oh my
He's
God.
just like me. Go ahead. What were you gonna say?
I was just gonna say, in this case, instead of like the dog becoming more like the person, we're saying that the person is a reflection of the dog. So it works both ways, is what I'm trying to say.
Yes.
My overall grade for Gallen, though, to finish things off, is a B-, which maybe I'm being a little bit harsh there. Like, maybe I'm kind of grading a little bit relative to what I know Gallen can be. 3.65 ERA in 150 innings really is a pretty solid outcome in general. But we've obviously seen Gallen be much better than this in the past.
Yeah, it's a little difficult overall because you do start, and I mean, that's a question we discussed before we started doing this was, do we grade Zac Gallen on Zac Gallen, or do we grade Zac Gallen on being a pitcher in Major League Baseball, right?
Yeah.
Those are two very different things. I think Zac Gallen, you expect more if you're grading Zac Gallen based on his past performances and what you believe, I guess, Zac Gallen could be. However, you got to start comparing him across baseball. And that's kind of what I did here with my report card for Zac Gallen. I still think his stuff is great. And I mean, you're right. The fastball was trash this year. But I also think that when I look back at how it ticked up at the end of the season, like you said, you started getting these
there were days.
Crazy 96, 97 plus days. And I just still think the stuff is there. And that's why I went still with an A-. If I disagree with anything on this list after our chat, it's probably my command. I probably should have gone lower with the command based on that. But, when you
wasn't terrible. His overall location plus, I think, was 101. So the full body was above average.
And I started looking mostly at his secondary pitches, like the curveball, and that being at 108 location plus, 107 location plus for the changeup, right? But you're right when it comes to the fastball, and essentially it all kind of unravels without that fastball there. So, but the command really was the big issue there. Durability also a big issue. I have him as a C+ there with durability. There were those times this season where we watched Zac Gallen just look over at the dugout in a certain way, and it made my tummy upset. Like, he would just glance over at the dugout in a way and kind of make a little face, and you were like, no, not again. And it was never like a devastating injury where it looked like something happened to him. He would just be after he threw a pitch, and suddenly you could see him like touching his, his thigh or something, or saying that there was some sort of cramp, some sort of issue. And it's something we know very well with Merrill Kelly, that Merrill Kelly has gone through. And I mean, it's gotten to the point where between the injuries, which I believe Tanner said earlier, every team has injuries. And yes, we're never going to say the Diamondbacks experienced more injuries than other major league teams. And that's the reason why they had, they came up short there at the end of the season. What I will say is that the injuries, especially to starting pitching, were just constant and just depressing all season long. And it was just hard to ever feel like you were getting healthy and getting right. And I mean, Zac Gallen, like there are some people that completely blame the strength and conditioning coach and other people in the organization. I don't know if it's fair or not to blame those people.
Yeah, I don't think so.
I mean, it's we all a lot of us live here in the desert. We understand again that the weather is always trying to kill us here outside. So I mean, it's hard to stay hydrated and it's hard to do certain things. But I mean, Zac just seemed to have nagging, ongoing issues that maybe never got right, and they kept popping back up. And that durability really just cost his team. But you could say that across the board as far as durability. Like this team, we made jokes about it, but it was like every time someone came back from the injured list, another sacrifice had to be made to bring that person back. So for dogging him, Jesse, I went there with a Basset Hound.
Okay.
There's a very particular reason I went with a Basset Hound. Basset Hounds, when you look at them, they have the big floppy ears, right? They have the short legs, right? They got the extra skin. They're funny looking. They're, whatever. But Basset Hounds are hounds. And even though they are one of the most laid back dogs, when push comes to shove and it's time to get work done, those dogs are going to do work. Ask why Basset Hounds are out there hunting foxes and stuff when it comes to game hunting and stuff. Basset Hounds are crazy. It's like one of those dogs, again, that you just don't expect to have the dog in it that it does, because as you look at him, that dog's laying there just very chill, very, very nonchalant, does not look like a competitor, but you'll be fooled. That dog has dog in him, if you know what I mean. But that's why I went with Basset Hound.
So you're kind of saying Gallen punches above his weight a little bit.
I'm saying when you look at Zac Gallen, he looks like he should have a surfboard in his hand and not a baseball glove. That's what I'm suggesting.
He is a very he is not particularly tall. He is not particularly I mean, obviously you have to be strong in order to throw a baseball 95 miles an hour, but it's not like Gallen is, crazy in that regard, right? I mean, he sort of looks like not a totally you don't look at Zac Gallen walking around in his jersey and you're like, oh, this guy's clearly or like a
one
t-shirt and shorts and you're like, oh,
baseball.
This guy's clearly a major league baseball player. No, he kind of looks like a normal dude.
Yeah, you question if he could what his golf score would be. You know what I mean? You're I don't know. I mean, maybe a good golfer. I don't know. That's the best I'm going to give him as far as an athlete goes. But there you go. See, and Old Salty says, I had a Basset Hound, turned my backyard into a rabbit graveyard. See, there we go, Jesse. That's what I'm talking about. Basset Hound's got that dog in them. That dog's gonna hunt. You know what I mean? That dog will hunt.
A rabbit graveyard. That's so sad.
Oh, it trust me. Pests, vermins, they can be very adorable, Jesse, but they also must be dealt with. You know what I mean?
No, but rabbits are different, Derek. They're cute
until they eat your garden.
They would never do that. Right? No rabbit would ever.
Pests, Jesse, I'm telling
you, do that.
They're big. No. They're big rats.
I refuse to believe it.
All right, my overall score, much like Jesse's, was a B- for Zac Gallen's season, and yeah, I mean, I felt like that was fair. I felt like Gallen still. You're still considering him above average as a pitcher in Major League Baseball when you're looking at his overall stats, and even considering the ups and downs that he had this year, I would say that you might even want to give him a little credit for being able to still put up those numbers despite the fact that this was probably one of the more erratic seasons of his entire career.
Yeah, absolutely. It was. I mean, there were moments this year where I was like, Gallen might finish with a 4.5 ERA. Some of the games just were not looking right. He had games where he would just walk several batters in a row. His walk rate was up significantly this year. We're used to seeing him really be all over the strike zone. So it was a weird year for him. But going back to the earlier conversation about how important 2025 is, Zac Gallen could make himself a whole lot of money if he puts it all together.
Yeah.
Like if he has a 2.5 like he did in 2022 and maintains that over a full season, people are going to forget about, this season being a little bit of a down year and even last season to some degree. And on the flip side, if he sort of continues the trend of kind of going in the wrong direction, which is now continued for 3 seasons, if he adds a 4th season to that, then I still think he's going to do totally well in free agency. There's no doubt about that. But there's a pretty wide range of outcomes with the price tag, I think.
Yeah.
Like I could see Zac Gallen getting, well over $200 million if he has like the best season of his career. Or, on the lower end, he's still probably going to be in the 9-figure range, but maybe it's closer to 120 or 140 or something like that. There's a decent range of outcomes here, and it'll be interesting to see how he responds.
Well, the Diamondbacks, here's the thing about 2025. This is an all-in year again, and that's what's fun about looking forward.
Yeah.
It's depressing maybe for some fans to look beyond that, and I suggest maybe don't do that. Maybe don't worry, at least at right now, beyond 2025, because that team in 2026 is going to be a completely different team.
I think that's what they're afraid of, though.
Oh, I know. But I mean, we have no idea what really that means as far as being a completely different team. We know that the young core is still going to be here. We know there's going to be pieces from the team that went to the World Series that are veteran pieces that are still here in 2026, like Lourdes. But there's going to be a good chance we're seeing, Jordan Lawler every day out there by that point. Yeah. And, a lot of the young guys coming up, we could see a starting rotation that potentially consists of Yumin Lin, Gilbert Diaz, Brandon Pfaadt, guys that we have already seen have success at a major league level. But, right now there might not be space for them. But again, next year, that's what makes next year so exciting, especially considering that 3 starting pitchers in their rotation are basically playing for their futures next season. And I mean, that brings the best out of guys. Competition, money, that contract, dangling that carrot, that brings the best out of these guys. And I think that's something that we can very much look forward to next season. Again, it's suffocating if you try as a fan to think beyond that and what they're going to do. And if they're going to be able to bring Zac Gallen back and this guy and that guy, it really, honestly, 2026 should be a little exciting because again, they're going to have money potentially at that point to play with that they don't really have now based on the contracts that they are committed to.
That's true.
And there's the possibility that they might go out and make a splash in free agency and not do a full rebuild going forward, but just add new components to it once the guys that are here maybe go elsewhere. Right. But that's to worry about then. Right now, again, Merrill Kelly, Jordan Montgomery, Zac Gallen, these guys are all playing for, their careers essentially beyond the 2025 season.
Yeah.
So
true.
Hopefully what we'll see is the best versions of all of those guys next year. If we saw the best versions out of those 3 guys, I would have a hard time betting against the Arizona Diamondbacks in 2025.
Yeah, they could be a very, very good baseball team if that happened. And it was the same this year, right? Like if Jordan Montgomery had the gap between what Montgomery was and what we thought he would be was enormous. I mean, it was what we thought he could be is one of the best pitchers in all of baseball, and what he was
statistically
arguably
one of the worst.
Statistically the worst depending on like what you set the innings threshold at. So if you're able to get the best versions out of these guys, which again, much easier said than done, you can't necessarily count on that. But there's a world where this Diamondbacks starting pitching staff goes from being one of the worst in the sport to one of the best, even without any personnel change whatsoever.
Justin McDearmont asks, is it more all in than this year was? Yes. Not as in the front office spending.
Yeah, we don't really know the answer to that yet. I would guess not.
Yeah. But I mean, I think it's more in as far as the players themselves are concerned, right? I mean, we kind of saw that last year, right? We picked up Grichuk and Peterson on essentially what was 1-year deals. I mean, we know the mutual option is no way going to be picked up. It's fake. It's not a real thing, right? But like they had career years potentially. I mean, Jock Peterson had one of the best years, if not the best year of his entire career. So as far as money goes, I don't know if they're all in, if they're going to be more all in than this year, because they might not have that money to spend once again, right? Like they went all in because of the trip to the World Series, because of essentially the postseason income that they received, the share of the postseason revenue that they received allowed them to make those moves. But now they're kind of committed financially, and they don't really have flexibility, nor do they have that additional influx of revenue from the postseason to aid them in going this offseason and picking more guys up. So yes, I think it's more of a personal all-in from the team rather than more of an all-in from the front office standpoint of them going out and acquiring free agents, because I think they're going to have their hands tied a bit spending.
Yeah, I think you would hope as well that the front office and ownership is also all in to some extent on 2025. I mean, yes, the team is not getting a postseason check, and that has an impact for sure. But next season is also a big year with going back to Zac Gallen. If this is going to be Zac Gallen's last season with the Diamondbacks, and if he is going to go out there and have a great year and earn his $250 million or whatever it winds up being, you want to capitalize on that, right? You want to make sure that in the last year that you have a true ace, one of the best pitchers in the sport, that you push the chips in at least to some extent, right? You'd hate to see the team kind of tap the brakes in terms of spending going into a year where you have some of these very, very good players who are in their final year, and Merrill Kelly is I guess the other part of that as well. So we'll see. Yeah. We'll see. It'll be interesting to see what kind of investment the ownership group is willing to make.
There's another worse timeline that we're not really talking about here, which is the fact that with so many expiring contracts, if the Diamondbacks don't have a good season in 2025, they might be able to get an absolute haul at the trade deadline.
That's true.
Giving some of these other teams some of these guys, and
you've already made people pretty angry by wearing your little Cubs situation, Derek. I don't know if you want to go there.
This is my same thought as the Paul Goldschmidt trade from years ago, but again,
and that trade worked out really well.
Yeah. Look at Luke Weaver, Jesse. He's doing great things for the Diamondbacks.
He's doing great things for the Yankees, is what he's doing.
God, this makes me sick. I don't know. I make myself sick wearing this jersey or this. It's not jersey. It's not jersey. It's not jersey. It's a hoodie. Let's make sure that's
jersey, that'd be
if it was a hoodie,
if
it was a jersey, that'd be egregious.
Derek just likes Chicago people. All right. He had this moment where he went to Wrigley Field for the first time. And he was enamored with it, and he felt the need to get merch. And so
hold on, this was the second time to Wrigley Field. I didn't get any merch the first time, though. I did get my first timer certificate, and I got my baseball cards, and I got my beer and a bat. But this was definitely just a fun, I guess, keepsake from my fun time there with our CHGO crew, who, by the way, will be out here for our upcoming Desert Duel golf tournament, and I wanted to wear this today in honor mostly of Cody Delmendo, but also of the entire crew coming out. I look forward to getting very drunk with Braggs once he's here, so make sure not to miss that.
Did you concede the PHNX mayoral race?
No, I absolutely did not.
Now you're going for the CHGO mayoral? You're starting a new campaign? Is that what this is?
Did you? I know you didn't watch Infinity War, Jesse, but there's this thing with Thanos having this gauntlet and acquiring all of the Infinity Stones, each one by one. And if I could become mayor of ALLCITY as a whole,
oh, there you go,
right, mayor of ALLCITY, but then also mayor of the individual cities.
City is in the name.
Well, also
it means a city. It means a mayor.
How does the song? How does the song go, Kev? ALLCITY like the mayor, right?
ALLCITY like the mayor.
Yeah, I mean,
which I've never quite understood exactly how
that happened.
Yeah.
Well, I have a lot of pull around here, Jesse.
That's
you know
fair.
that.
Yeah.
And of course, we have a very special happy birthday to wish someone on the other side of this break. So make sure you don't go anywhere. But of course, when we go on a road trip, especially to Chicago, we don't drive there. But if we did drive there, we would stop by all the Circle Ks. And of course, you should stop by Circle K right now, whether you're on the road or whether you're just thirsty, because it is America's thirst stop. And right now, if you join the Inner Circle for free by downloading the Circle K app today, you can get your first 5 Polar Pops for absolutely free. You'll also get any size Polar Pop, any size Froster after that as a member of the Inner Circle for just 79 cents. Terms and conditions apply at participating locations. Visit CircleK.com for details. But you also save yourself 25 cents off per gallon on your first 5 fill-ups, and you'll save 3 cents off per gallon every day after that. It's an absolutely free membership. No reason for you not to sign up. So make sure to check out Circle K today. And of course, again, it's the weather's getting nice. If you're going on a road trip, you need to make sure you stop by Circle K. Jesse, is it the place? It's the place, right?
It is the place. It is the place. And the gas is also like pretty dang affordable.
It's pretty dang affordable, and then you save even more by being an Inner Circle member. Also, make sure to pick up some chocolate-covered almonds for Damon when you're there. And speaking, oh my God, Lindsay's so angry at me right now. Get some chocolate almonds for Lindsay too. Quick, I'm going to get in trouble if you don't bring them. Also, speaking of Lindsay, somebody stole her Shady Rays sunglasses. I have a feeling it was Shane, but I think we recovered those. Of course, if you ever lose your Shady Rays, of course, you know that you can get a brand new pair for free if you lose or break your Shady Rays, because they have the craziest broken and lost replacement plan in all of eyewear. They also have some wonderful styles to choose from. They have some amazing durable frames, some crystal clear optics in their lenses, and also check out the Color Rush lenses right now, which is a brand new product that they have that makes everything pop, makes all the colors brighter, makes everything great. And of course, if you don't love your shades, you can exchange them for free or return them within 30 days. No questions asked, no risk when you shop. Exclusively for our listeners, Shady Rays is giving out their best deal of the season. Head to shadyrays.com and use code PHNX for 35% off polarized sunglasses. Try for yourself the shades rated 5 stars by over 300,000 people. All right. Well, of course, before we get out of here, we have to wish a very special person a very special happy birthday. And of course, when we're talking about that, we're talking about Merrill Kelly's father, Geraldo Perdomo. So big happy birthday to Jerry P today.
You had me there for a second. I was like, no, Derek, Merrill's birthday it wasn't long ago. It was like a few days ago, but you're getting confused.
Yeah,
but
no,
yes,
I'm
right.
not getting confused because I know a father and son relationship when I see one. And I hope Merrill got his dad something nice. I know we love Domo, Damon. It's Damon and Domo all the way, by the way. That's the reason why that connection is there. But I know he's celebrating his birthday tonight. They might even get together, those two. I don't know. But any favorite moment this season of Geraldo Perdomo? I know that moment from the spring training was a whole lot of fun when he was mic'd up and he claimed Merrill Kelly was his son.
Yes, that was fantastic. If you don't know what we're talking about, go to our Twitter page at PHNX_DBacks. We reposted that lovely. It's like a 30-second clip or something. It's pretty incredible. But I'm reminded of when Geraldo Perdomo came back to the Diamondbacks, and he did miss a pretty significant amount of time, and it was just so clear how happy everyone was to have him back at that point. We also had Nash Walker, the D-backs AAA broadcaster, on right around the time that he was rehabbing in AAA, and we heard from Nash about how all of the AAA players were just enjoying having Perdomo around for those few days that he was there. And Jordan Montgomery, I think the first game that Perdomo was playing defense behind Jordan Montgomery gave Perdomo an unsolicited shout out in his post game presser. It was like, I just love having Perdomo out there. He, he's constantly like yelling encouraging words at me throughout the game, and it helps keep me going. So his impact goes beyond just what he does for you in the batter's box and defensively in the field. He has taken on a leadership role on this team, and even today on his birthday, he is now 25 years old. He is still very young in this league and has a bright future ahead.
My favorite moment, Jesse, comes from the beginning of this season. Not the beginning of the season, but last offseason, when at one point, because of all of the excitement, because of everything that had happened with the Diamondbacks' magical World Series run, sometimes it took a little while for things to trickle in. And when I say that, like a good vacation you might take, you might not post your pictures while you're on vacation because you're having such a good time. So you wait till you get back home.
I definitely know where you're going with
this. and you post your pictures, right? Well, we had Perdomo post a series of Instagram messages thanking his teammates and essentially expressing to them how much he loved them and in some ways was going to miss them. And
That's the vibe that it gave off.
Yeah, that's the vibe. That's the vibe it gave off. But instead, we took it in a completely different direction, and it raised red flags for us, wondering if the kudos, if all of the love that Domo was sharing was in somehow a precursor to perhaps him being traded. And we speculated a little bit. And the first time that we saw Geraldo Perdomo, he did not hesitate to walk up to me with a very shifty look on his face and tell me, I've been watching your show. I heard what you said about me. And that, to me, to this day, is still my favorite point. His favorite moment. He had an amazing attitude about it. We laughed. We had a good time. And I mean, again, it was all out of love. It was all out of making sure Damon didn't absolutely lose his mind if Perdomo left his team.
We would have been picking up the pieces for a long time if that had happened.
It would have been, Jesse, he would have been inconsolable for 6 months. We wouldn't have gotten any shows done because he just would have been a broken person. But again, Geraldo, like you said, means so much to this team beyond just his bat, beyond just the fact that the man loves being down 0-2 in the count and working it full. It's everything he does for his teammates. It's everything he does for his pitchers. It's the fact that Torey has declared him as his on-field general and manager, maybe on-field general manager. Maybe that works too. I don't know. He doesn't do transactions on the field, so I guess it would be two different things. But Jerry really is just an incredible person, and the Diamondbacks are very lucky to have him as part of this organization. So happy birthday to you, Jerry P. Well, that's all we got for today. Of course, we will be back tomorrow along with a familiar face. Archie Bradley will be back joining us at 1 p.m. tomorrow to talk about our World Series picks and so much more. So make sure to not miss out on that. You can follow us in the meantime on Twitter. I am at Cap_Caveman with a K. Jesse is at Jesse N. Friedman. Of course, Kev on the ones and twos is at Kev Tom Wright. Our show is at PHNX_DBacks, but all roads do lead to at PHNX_sports on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. We thank you guys so much for your time today. We will see you tomorrow. We hope you have a wonderful evening. Behave yourselves. And remember, kids, baseball is fun, but it's so much more fun when you just let me wear what I want to wear.
We all silly like the mayor.